The smell of garlic and rosemary had soaked into my skin so deeply that I couldn't remember what I smelled like before Vincenzo's 3. Years of double shifts had turned me into a ghost, someone who moved through the elegant dining room pouring wine and clearing plates while the wealthy pretended I didn't exist. I preferred it that way. Invisible meant safe. It was a Friday night, the kind where reservations were booked months in advance and tips could either save me or break me. My feet ached in the cheap flats I'd worn through at the heels, and the permanent knot between my shoulder blades had tightened into something that felt like rope binding me together. But I smiled. I always smiled. Table 12 needed water. Table 15 wanted their check. Table 9, the air changed. I felt it before I saw anything, the way animals sense earthquakes before they hit. Conversations didn't stop exactly, but they softened. The hostess's voice climbed half an octave. Even the piano player in the corner seemed to gentle his touch on the keys. Then he walked in. Dante Rossi moved through Vincenzo's like he owned it, which I'd later learn he actually did. Tall and lean, wrapped in a black suit that probably cost more than 6 months of my rent. Dark hair, sharp jaw, and a presence that made everyone else in the room feel like background noise. 2 men flanked him, built like walls, and watching everything with eyes that never stopped moving. I recognized that particular brand of awareness. Danger walked with him like a shadow. I should have looked away. Should have focused on table 12, on the water pitcher growing heavy in my hands. On staying invisible the way I'd perfected over 3 exhausting years. But I didn't. Our eyes met across the crowded restaurant and time fractured. His gaze locked onto mine. Arc, fathomless, absolutely focused. I felt it like a physical touch. A cold finger trailing down my spine, heat flooding my cheeks. My pulse spiking with an instinct older than thought. I saw something flicker in those eyes. Surprise, maybe, or recognition of something I couldn't name. The moment lasted maybe 3 seconds. 3 seconds that somehow rewrote the architecture of my carefully controlled life. I tore my gaze away first, my hands trembling so badly the water pitcher rattled. Stupid. So incredibly stupid. You don't make eye contact with men like that. You don't draw their attention. You don't exist. I hurried to table 12 on unsteady legs, focusing on the simple mechanics of pouring water. Ice clinked too loudly in crystal glasses. My reflection caught in the polished silverware, dark circles under my eyes, hair escaping its practical bun, exhaustion carved into every line of my face. When I dared glance toward the corner booth where they'd seated him, I found him still watching me. Not glancing, watching, with an intensity that made my stomach drop. He leaned toward one of his men and spoke quietly, his eyes never leaving me. I couldn't hear the words over the ambient noise of the restaurant, but I saw his lips move. Saw the man nod and pull out his phone. Something in my chest tightened with unnamed dread. The rest of the shift passed in a blur of anxious service. I felt his gaze tracking me across the dining room, felt the weight of attention I'd spent years avoiding. When his party finally left 2 hours later, generous cash scattered on the table, I exhaled for what felt like the first time all night. It was over. A strange moment, nothing more. By tomorrow, I'd be invisible again. I counted my tips in the back room after closing, my hands still shaking slightly. Enough to cover this week's groceries, and maybe, finally, a payment on Danny's medical debt. My little brother had been gone for 2 years, but the bills haunted me like his ghost. My phone buzzed as I walked to the bus stop. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something, instinct, curiosity, fate, made me press accept. Silence. Then a man's voice. Unfamiliar and professional. Miss Bennett, Mr. Rossi requests your full background by morning. Leave nothing out. The line went dead. I stood under the flickering streetlight, phone clutched in my trembling hand, and realized with bone-deep certainty that my life had just changed forever. Because Dante Rossi had noticed me. And men like him didn't simply forget. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in my studio apartment with its 3 locks. 2 of them broken, and listened to every sound. Footsteps in the hallway. Cars passing on the street below. The distant wail of sirens that never seemed to stop in this neighborhood. Mr. Rossi requests your full background by morning. What did that mean? Background for what? Why? When pale morning light finally crept through my thin curtains, I felt hollowed out by exhaustion and fear. I dragged myself through my morning routine, instant coffee, the same tired uniform, the walk to the bus stop where I kept my head down and my pepper spray ready. My phone rang as I waited. My landlord. Miss Bennett, about the rent. Here it was. The eviction notice I'd been dreading. I was 3 weeks late. I've decided to waive this month. And next month. Consider it. The compensation for the broken heater last winter. The line went dead before I could respond. My hands shook as I lowered the phone. The heater had been broken for 6 months. He'd never cared before. At the pharmacy during my lunch break, the technician looked confused when I tried to pay for my sleeping pills. It says here your prescription is covered. Full coverage. Since this morning. She squinted at her screen. By ... I don't have a name. Just says account paid in full. Ice settled in my stomach. The debt collector who called me twice a week every week for 2 years. Demanding payment on Danny's hospital bills with increasingly threatening language had gone silent. No call Tuesday, no call Thursday, nothing. Something was happening. Something I didn't understand. At Vincenzo's that evening, my manager Marco pulled me aside before I could clock in. He wouldn't meet my eyes. You're being reassigned. Permanently. Section 9. Section 9. The corner booth. Dante Rosi's section. Marco, I don't want... It's not a request, Sophia. His voice dropped to a whisper, and I saw actual fear in his face. Mr. Rossi specifically requested you. You don't say no to Mr. Rossi. Nobody says no. My chest tightened. Why would he request me? Only saw him once. I don't know, and I don't ask questions. Neither should you. During my shift, I noticed him. A man in a dark suit sitting alone at table 4, nursing a single glass of wine for 3 hours. He never ordered food. Never looked at his phone. Just watched. Watched me. When I walked past, his eyes tracked my movement with professional detachment. Not threatening. Not sexual. Clinical. Like I was a subject being studied. By the time my shift ended at 11, my nerves were frayed to breaking. I hurried out the back exit into the alley, keys threaded between my fingers like claws. The walk home normally took 20 minutes through streets I'd learned to navigate by calculated risk. But tonight, I heard the car after 3 blocks. A black SUV with tinted windows, crawling along the curb 30 feet behind me. Never closer. Never farther. My heart hammered. I walked faster. The SUV matched my pace. I broke into a run, my bag slamming against my hip, breath coming in panicked gasps. The SUV accelerated, then stopped at the corner, idling as I scrambled up the stairs to my building. I slammed through the door and climbed 4 flights on shaking legs, expecting footsteps behind me. But none came. Only when I reached my apartment did I see it. A black envelope slipped under my door. My hands trembled as I picked it up. Heavy paper. Expensive. No markings. Inside was a single sheet with typed text. Sophia Marie Bennett born. April 3rd, 1996. Current address, 2447 Morrison Street. Apt 4B employment. Vincenzo's Restaurant, 3 years, 2 months previous employment. County Hospital CNA. 18 months. Pete's Diner, 9 months education. Community College Nursing Program incomplete. Withdrew Year 2 outstanding debt, $47,382. 19 Medical Daniel Bennett. Deceased August 14, 2022. Prescription medications. Zolpidem sleep. Sertraline anxiety daily route. Bus number 42 departs 5:47 p.m. Walks home from Grant and 5th. I read it 3 times before my brain could process what I was seeing. He knew everything. Everything. I flipped the page over with shaking hands. The back contained more. So much more. Saturday mornings. Volunteers at St. Mary's Soup Kitchen. 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. Donates to Animal Rescue League monthly. $15 automatic withdrawal coffee order, medium drip. Oat milk, no sugar daily grind. Corner of 8th reads during bus commute. Currently Jane Eyre library copy. Do 10/24 sleep pattern. Average 4 to 5 hours, takes medication at 11 p.m. Eats 1 meal per day, typically dinner after shift, sends $200 month to debt collectors despite inability to afford it. My vision blurred. These weren't just facts. These were pieces of my life so private, so personal, that even I tried not to think about them. He knew I was starving myself to pay for my dead brother's medical bills. He knew I couldn't sleep without pills. He knew what I was reading. At the bottom, in different handwriting, sharp, masculine, commanding, was a single note. She walked home alone at 11 p.m. through one of the worst neighborhoods in the city. 3 assaults reported on her route in the past month. She carries pepper spray but no phone charger. Her locks are broken. She's either incredibly brave or she's given up on living. Find out which. I pressed my hand to my mouth, choking back a sound between a sob and hysterical laughter. He'd had me investigated, completely, invasively, every detail of my exhausted, struggling existence catalogued like I was some kind of project. And he'd done it in less than 12 hours. The next evening, Dante Rossi was waiting at table 9 when I arrived for my shift. Alone this time. No guards visible, though I knew they had to be nearby. He sat with the controlled stillness of a predator, one hand resting on a glass of wine, his dark eyes tracking me the moment I entered. Marco practically pushed me toward the section. Don't keep him waiting. I approached on legs that felt disconnected from my body. Up close he was even more devastating, sharp features. A mouth that looked carved from stone, and those eyes that saw too much. Sit, he said softly. I'm working. Sit, Sophia. The use of my name, intimate and certain, made something flutter dangerously in my chest. I remained standing, anger overriding fear. You had me investigated. My voice shook but held. You invaded my privacy. You know things about me that no one should know. Yes, no denial, no apology. How dare you? Just flat acknowledgement. I needed to know who you are. He gestured to the chair again, his patience infinite and terrifying. What you need. Whether you're in danger? From who? I laughed bitterly. You? From everyone else? His eyes held mine, and I saw something flicker there, genuine concern beneath the control. Sit down, Sophia. Please, let me explain. The please undid me. I sank into the chair before my knees could give out. He leaned forward, and I caught his scent-expensive cologne, cedar and smoke and something darker. Do you know what I learned about you? Apparently everything, I whispered. I learned that you work 70 hours a week across jobs that barely pay minimum wage. That you skip meals to send money to debt collectors for bills that aren't even legally yours anymore. Your brother's estate should have absorbed them. His jaw tightened. I learned that you walk through gang territory alone every night because you can't afford a car or cab fare. That you live in an apartment where the locks don't work and your neighbors deal drugs. Shame burned through me. That's none of your business. I'm making it my business. His hand moved across the table, stopping just short of touching mine. You're either the bravest woman I've ever met, or you've given up caring whether you live or die. Which is it? The question hits like a physical blow. Tears burned behind my eyes. I don't know, I admitted, my voice breaking. I don't know anymore. His expression softened almost imperceptibly. Then let me care for you, until you remember how. Why? The word came out desperate. Why do you care? You don't even know me, don't I? He finally touched me, his fingers covering mine with shocking warmth. I know everything, Sophia, and that's exactly why I care. That's insane. Perhaps. His thumb traced my knuckles, but it's done. You're under my protection now, whether you accept it or not. You can't just... That ends tonight, he said quietly with absolute finality. Dante pulled a leather folder from inside his jacket and slid it across the table. I stared at it like it might bite. Open it. Inside was a cashier's check, made out to the 3 separate debt collection agencies that had been hounding me for 2 years. The amount, $47,382.19. Exactly what I owed, down to the cent. What is this? My voice came out strangled. Your freedom from debt. Sign the acceptance forms, and by Monday morning you'll owe nothing to anyone. I shoved the folder back toward him. I don't want your money. It's not charity. It's an exchange. His eyes never left mine. I pay your debts. In return, you give me your time and your presence. The words hung between us, heavy with implication. You want to buy me. Disgust and something dangerously close to temptation warred in my chest. I want to protect you. There's a difference. He leaned back, his expression unreadable. You'll move into a secure apartment I own. Accept a driver for safety. Allow me to ensure you're eating, sleeping, safe. Nothing more unless you choose it. I'm not a possession, no. You're a woman I can't stop thinking about. The raw honesty in his voice stole my breath. A woman who looked at me like I was human. And now that I know how alone you are, how much danger you're in every single day, I can't unknow it. I can't let it continue. You don't own my choices. Then choose. He stood, buttoning his jacket with controlled precision. The offer stands. When you're ready, and you will be ready, Sophia called this number. He placed a black card on the table. Just a phone number, embossed in silver. Then he walked away. And I sat alone with a check for my freedom and the terrifying certainty that I'd just refused something I desperately needed. I lasted 6 days. 6 days of escalating nightmare. The phone calls started Tuesday. Heavy breathing. No words. Just someone letting me know they were watching. Wednesday night, I came home to find my apartment door unlocked. Nothing stolen. Nothing broken. But everything was wrong. Drawers slightly open, books rearranged, my pillow on the wrong side of the bed. Someone had been inside, touching my things, sending a message. Thursday, a man followed me from the bus stop. Too close. Too deliberate. When I sped up, he matched my pace. I fumbled for my pepper spray, heart slamming against my ribs. A black SUV appeared at the curb. The man saw it and fled. The SUV followed me home but never approached. Protection or threat, I couldn't tell anymore. Friday, I broke. I came home shaking, exhausted, terrified of my own shadow. The walls of my apartment felt like they were closing in. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, even with the pills, couldn't breathe past the constant spike of adrenaline. At 11:47 p.m., I pulled out the black card with trembling fingers and dialed. 1 ring. A man's voice, not Dante's. Yes, I need. My voice cracked. I need to speak to Dante. Tell him it's Sophia. Stay where you are. The line disconnected. 20 minutes later, a knock on my door made me jump. I checked the peephole with my pepper spray ready. Dante stood in my hallway alone, still in a dark suit, but with his tie loosened and hair slightly disheveled. He looked like he'd run. I opened the door. His eyes swept over me, taking in my tears, my shaking hands, the fear I couldn't hide. Who hurt you? His voice was deadly soft. Tell me, and they're dead by morning. The certainty in those words should have frightened me. Instead, something inside me crumbled. I'd been alone in my fear for so long that his solid, dangerous presence felt like salvation. I don't know, I sobbed. Phone calls. Someone was in my apartment. A man followed me. He stepped inside and pulled me against his chest in one smooth motion. His arms wrapped around me, one hand cradling the back of my head, and I felt the tension drain from my body like he'd flipped a switch. I've got you, he murmured into my hair. You're safe now. I'm here. I breathed him in cedar and smoke and absolute certainty and let myself break. He held me while I cried, his heartbeat steady against my ear, his hands stroking my hair with unexpected gentleness. When the sobs finally subsided into shaking breaths, he pulled back just enough to frame my face with his hands. Pack a bag, he said quietly. Just for tonight. Then you can decide if you want to stay. I nodded, too exhausted and grateful to argue. Okay. I woke to sunlight and silence. For a disorienting moment, I didn't know where I was. The bed beneath me felt like floating on clouds, wrapped in sheets so soft they couldn't be real. The ceiling above was 20 feet high, crowned with recessed lighting that created a gentle, ambient glow. Memory crashed back. Dante. The SUV ride through the city, his hand holding mine as exhaustion finally pulled me under. I sat up slowly, taking in my surroundings. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the entire city, a view that must cost millions. The bedroom was enormous, decorated in soft grays and ivory, minimalist furniture that screamed expensive taste. A crystal chandelier caught the morning light, scattering rainbow fragments across the walls. I was still in yesterday's clothes. Someone had removed my shoes and covered me with a cashmere throw. A soft knock interrupted my spiraling thoughts. The door opened before I could respond, and a woman entered, 50s, kind-faced, carrying a tray laden with breakfast. "Good morning, Miss Bennet. I'm Rosa, Mr. Rosie's housekeeper." Her smile was genuine, warm. "I brought you breakfast. The bathroom is through that door. Mr. Rosie left clothes in the closet for you, all your size. He said to tell you he'll be back this evening, and that you're safe here." She set the tray on the nightstand and left before I could find words. I stared at the breakfast. Fresh fruit arranged artfully. Pastries that looked handmade. Coffee in delicate porcelain, steam rising gently. And beside the cup, a handwritten note on heavy cardstock. "Sophia, everything in this apartment is yours. The clothes, the books, the kitchen. Rosa will take you anywhere you want to go. You're not a prisoner. You're protected. Rest. Eat. Decide what you want. D." My hands shook as I set down the note. Not a prisoner. But the door had locks. The windows didn't open. And somewhere, I knew, there were cameras. Guards. Safety or captivity. Maybe both. After a shower in a bathroom larger than my entire studio, I explored the closet. It was full. Completely full. Jeans in my exact size. Sweaters in soft neutrals. Dresses casual, elegant, nothing revealing. Everything tasteful, expensive, and exactly my style. How did he know I preferred silver jewelry over gold? That I loved cardigans? That I gravitated toward blues and grays? I pulled on jeans and a cream sweater, both fitting perfectly, and ventured into the rest of the penthouse. The living room was stunning, leather furniture, a fireplace, more floor-to-ceiling windows, but it was the library that stopped me cold. An entire wall of built-in shelves filled with books. I moved closer, running my fingers along the spines, and my breath caught. First editions, classics I loved, Jane Austen, the Bronte sisters, Tolstoy, Dickens. Books I'd checked out from the library a dozen times because I couldn't afford to own them. And on the coffee table, bookmarked and waiting, a pristine hardcover copy of Jane Eyre, my current read. The library copy was due back Monday. He'd bought me my own. Tears burned my eyes. This wasn't just wealth being thrown around. This was attention. Someone had paid enough attention to know what I loved, what brought me comfort, what I needed. I sank onto the leather couch, overwhelmed. In the kitchen, I found the refrigerator stocked with oat milk, my specific brand. The coffee was the exact blend from Daily Grind. There were almonds, my preferred snack, and the low-sugar granola bars I bought when I could afford them. Every detail was perfect, every preference anticipated. It should have felt violating. Instead, it felt like being seen for the first time in my life. When Dante returned that evening, I was curled in the library with Jane Eyre, a blanket over my legs, third cup of coffee cooling on the side table. He stopped in the doorway, and something in his expression softened when he saw me. "You stayed. You knew I would." I set down the book. "You know everything, apparently." He crossed to the couch, sitting carefully on the opposite end close, but not touching. Not everything. I know facts. Data. What you buy, where you go, what you read. His eyes found mine. But I don't know what you're thinking right now. What you're feeling. If you hate me for this, I should hate you, I whispered. This is insane. You investigated me like I was a criminal. You know things about me I never told anyone. I know. No defense. Just acknowledgement. But you also knew I needed oat milk, and Jane Eyre, and silence. My voice broke. No one's ever paid that much attention to me in my entire life. He shifted closer, his hand hovering near mine. May I? I nodded. His fingers laced through mine, warm and solid. I want to know more, Sophia. Not through files and surveillance. Through you. Through conversations and time and trust. Why? The question I kept asking, why do you care so much? His thumb traced circles on my palm. Because you're the first real thing I've seen in 10 years. For the first time since we met, Dante looked uncertain. He still held my hand, but his grip had tightened slightly, like he was anchoring himself. His jaw worked as if choosing words carefully, something I suspected he rarely had to do. My father was murdered when I was 19, he said finally. Shot in front of me. 7 bullets. I held him while he died. My breath caught. Dante, he ran the family business. Legitimate enterprises mixed with less legitimate ones. When he died, everything fell to me. A teenager who'd been studying business at university, suddenly responsible for an empire built on loyalty and fear. His eyes grew distant. I had 2 choices: let it collapse and watch everyone who depended on us fall, or become something harder than whoever killed him. So you became this. I gestured at the penthouse. At him, at the invisible empire surrounding us. I became someone no one would ever hurt again. He turned to face me fully. I built walls. Learned to read people through investigation, not trust. Controlled everything I could control because I couldn't control the bullet that took my father. Understanding bloomed in my chest, painful and clear. That's why you investigated me. I don't know how to just ... ask. The confessions seemed to cost him. I don't know how to be vulnerable enough to say, tell me about yourself and trust the answer. So I collect data. Facts. Evidence. It's the only way I know how to. He paused, struggling. How to connect. I shifted closer, my free hand coming up to touch his face. He went very still, like he'd forgotten what gentle touch felt like. That's the saddest thing I've ever heard, I whispered. I know it's wrong. It's lonely. My thumb brushed his cheekbone. You've been so lonely that you forgot how normal people learn to love each other. Something cracked in his expression. He turned his face into my palm, pressing a kiss there that felt like surrender. Teach me, he said quietly. Teach me how to do this without files and surveillance. Okay. I took a breath, steadying myself. But I have conditions. No more surveillance. No more guards watching me without my knowledge. If you want to know something about me, you ask, like a normal person. He nodded slowly. Agreed. And I get to ask you anything. No secrets. No corporate euphemisms about business. Real honesty. His jaw tightened, but he met my eyes. That's harder. My world is violent, Sophia. There are things I don't want to expose you to. I'm already exposed. I'm sitting in your penthouse under your protection because someone threatened me. Don't protect me from the truth. A long silence. Then, all right. No secrets. You ask, I answer. I gathered my courage. Have you killed people? Most men would have lied, would have deflected or softened the truth. Dante just held my gaze, unflinching. Yes. My stomach clenched, but I didn't pull away. How many? Enough that I stopped counting. His voice was flat, emotionless. Men who threatened my family, who broke agreements, who hurt people under my protection. I don't kill for pleasure, Sophia, but I've killed for necessity. Will you kill again? Probably. No hesitation. My world doesn't run on mercy. It runs on strength and consequences. I should have been horrified, should have pulled my hand from his and run. But I saw the pain beneath the admission, the weight he carried. "Can you promise me something?" I asked. "Anything. Don't lie to me. Ever. I can handle the truth about who you are. I can't handle deception. I promise." He pulled me closer until I was nearly in his lap. "But I need to know. Can you accept this? Can you accept me? A man who's done terrible things, who'll probably do more, but who only wants to be gentle for you." The question hung between us, enormous and terrifying. I thought about the investigation file, the obsessive attention to detail, the way he'd noticed I was suffering and couldn't walk away, how he'd held me last night while I broke down, asking nothing in return. Monster, maybe, but also the first person in years who'd truly seen me. "I don't know," I admitted, "but I want to try." Relief flooded his features. He rested his forehead against mine, his breath warm on my lips. "That's all I'm asking. Time. A chance. Then ask me something," I whispered. "No files. Just ask." His smile was small, tentative. "What's your favorite memory of your brother?" And just like that, we began learning each other the way people were meant to, through words and trust and the terrifying vulnerability of being truly known. 2 weeks into living with Dante, I woke to tension crackling through the penthouse like electricity before a storm. Rosa's smile was strained when she brought breakfast. The guards I'd learnt to recognize Marcus Vincent. Color moved through the space with coiled alertness, hands near their jackets, eyes constantly scanning. Something was wrong. Dante emerged from his office as I was finishing coffee, his expression carefully controlled but his shoulders tight. "We need to talk." My stomach dropped. What happened? He sat across from me, and for the first time, I saw something like uncertainty in his eyes. "The Castellano family knows about you. They've sent a message back off the waterfront territories, or they'll come after you to prove I'm vulnerable." Ice flooded my veins. "They threatened me? They threatened what's mine?" His jaw clenched. "Which means they've made a fatal miscalculation, but that's not the point." "Then what is?" He took a breath, like what he was about to say cost him something. "I can send you somewhere safe. Vancouver, Paris, anywhere you want, under a new identity with full protection. You disappear, and they lose leverage." I stared at him. His single quotes read ... giving me an out. "I'm giving you a choice." His eyes held mine. "I can protect you from a distance, or you can stay here, and I'll protect you directly. But it's your decision, Sophia, not mine." The weight of it settled over me. For weeks Dante had made decisions where I lived, what security I needed, how my life would work. He'd investigated me, moved me, controlled my circumstances with absolute certainty. Now he was handing me power. "What do you want?" I asked carefully. "I want you to stay. Raw honesty. I want you here where I can see you, know you're safe, wake up knowing you're under my roof. But I won't trap you. I won't make you a prisoner because I'm afraid of losing you." Something in my chest cracked open. This was the test, the moment that would define everything between us. "I'm staying," I said. His eyes closed briefly, relief washing over his features. "You're sure?" "I'm sure, but I have conditions." "Anything. No more making decisions for me. You tell me about threats. You explain the dangers. You let me participate in my own safety." I leaned forward. "I'm not a porcelain doll you hide away, Dante. If I'm staying in your world, I need to understand it." He nodded slowly. "Agreed. No more protection through ignorance. And you trust me enough to be honest. About everything." "I do." He reached across the table, palm up, offering. "I will." Something shifted between us after that day. Dante stopped positioning guards without explanation. Instead, he'd show me security reports, explain why certain precautions were necessary, ask my input on routes and timing. I stopped resenting the protection and started participating in it. Learned to notice when we were being followed, understood the signals his men used. We developed routines that felt like building a life rather than serving a sentence. Morning coffee together on the balcony, his hand on my knee while we watched the city wake. Evenings where I read in the library while he worked, occasionally looking up to find him watching me with soft eyes. Nights where we talked until dawn about everything: my childhood, his empire, dreams we'd abandoned, fears we carried. One evening I found the investigation file on his desk. I picked it up, my heart pounding, flipping through pages I'd only glimpsed that first terrifying night. But this time I noticed things I'd missed. Handwritten notes in the margins, in Dante's sharp, precise script. Smiled at elderly customer who couldn't read menu. Genuine kindness. Not performance. Limps slightly by end of shift, shoes worn through. Needs new ones but won't buy them. Tipped the busboy from her own tips when customer stiffed him, earns $12. But still shares. Reads on bus with complete absorption, escapes into stories. Needs beauty in her life. My vision blurred. These weren't clinical observations. They were ... tenderness. Wonder. A lonely man trying to understand why someone had affected him so deeply. I turned to the last page, dated the night we met. At the bottom, in slightly shakier handwriting, as if written in haste, she saw me. Really saw me, not the reputation, not the fear. Just a man. Find out everything about her. Learn what makes her smile. Understand her pain. Protect her. And below that, underlined twice, don't lose her. I was still holding the file when Dante walked into the library. He stopped short, eyes going to the papers in my hands, then to my face. I saw tension flash across his features, bracing for anger, for accusation. Instead, I asked quietly, "When did you write these notes?" He moved closer, cautious. That night. After I got home. I couldn't sleep, so I kept reading the report, trying to understand why ... double quotes. He trailed off. Why what? Why, you'd broken something in me that I thought was dead. His voice was rough. I've met thousands of people, Sophia. Beautiful women, powerful men, everyone wanting something from me. But you looked at me like I was just ... human. And I couldn't let that go. I set the file down carefully. These notes. Genuine kindness. Needs beauty in her life. You weren't just investigating my background. You were trying to understand my heart. Yes. He ran a hand through his hair, a rare gesture of frustration. I know how it sounds. Obsessive, controlling, but I didn't know any other way to ... double quotes. He gestured helplessly. To love you. The word hung between us, enormous and terrifying. Love, I whispered. From that first moment, he closed the distance between us, his eyes burning with intensity. You think I investigate every woman who serves me wine? I've been alone for so long, Sophia. Built walls so high that nothing could reach me. Then you looked at me with those tired, kind eyes, and every wall I'd built just crumbled. Tears spilled down my cheeks. So you had me investigated, so I tried to know you the only way I knew how. He cupped my face gently, thumbs brushing away tears. Through data, facts, evidence. Because asking, "Tell me about yourself," felt too vulnerable. Too much like admitting I needed you. I pressed my hand over his, holding it against my cheek. That's the loneliest thing I've ever heard. I know. His voice cracked. I know it's wrong. I know it's not how normal people fall in love. But when I read that you donated to animal shelters even when you were starving, when I learned you said thank you to people who treated you like furniture, when I discovered you sang to yourself on the bus because you needed beauty in that hard life, he stopped, composing himself. I didn't just want to protect you. I wanted to deserve you. Dante, you asked me if I could promise not to lie. His forehead touched mine. Here's the truth. I'm obsessed with you. I think about you constantly. I know things about you that I shouldn't know. And I want to know more. Not through files. Through mornings and conversations and watching you discover you're allowed to be happy. I want to learn you, Sophia. Really learn you. Not the data, the soul underneath. I was sobbing now, overwhelmed by the raw honesty. This dangerous man, this killer, this crime lord, he was more vulnerable in this moment than I'd ever been. "Ask me something," I said through tears. "No files. Just ask." His smile was tentative, hopeful. "What do you dream about? When you finally sleep through the night, what do you see?" "Safety," I whispered. "Being held. Not having to fight alone anymore. I can give you that." His lips brushed my forehead. "I want to give you that. Then stop investigating me." I pulled back to look in his eyes. "And start knowing me." "How?" I answered by kissing him. His sharp inhale was the only sound before he kissed me back with devastating gentleness. His hands cradled my face like I was precious, breakable, sacred. I felt years of loneliness and walls and protection melt away, leaving only this, two broken people choosing to be whole together. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he pressed his forehead to mine. "I love you," he said. Completely. Obsessively. In ways that probably aren't healthy, but feel more real than anything I've ever known. "I love you too," I breathed. "Even though you're insane. Especially because I'm insane for you." We stayed like that as the city lights came on outside, holding each other in the gathering dark. Finally, letting surveillance become devotion and investigation become love. 3 months passed like a dream I was afraid to wake from. The Castellano threat had been resolved. Dante's careful phrasing for something I understood meant violence I didn't need details about. My debts were paid. The broken locks on my old apartment had been fixed before I'd moved out permanently. My life had transformed from exhausted survival to something I barely recognized. I had space to breathe, to sleep without pills, to eat 3 meals a day without calculating costs. But I also had a choice now. Dante never said it explicitly, but I felt the question hovering between us. "Now that you're safe, now that you're free, will you stay?" He'd grown quieter lately, more careful, like he was bracing for loss. I'd catch him watching me with something that looked like fear in his eyes, quickly masked when I met his gaze. One evening I found him in his office, the investigation file open on his desk. He was feeding pages into the fireplace, one by one, watching them curl and blacken. "What are you doing?" I stopped in the doorway. He didn't look up. "Getting rid of this. I don't need it anymore." I moved closer, watching flames consume the typed reports. My work history, my daily routines, the clinical catalogue of my life. "Why now?" "Because I know you now." His voice was quiet. "The real you, not the data. I know you hate mornings, but love sunrise. That you cry at sad commercials. That you hum when you're cooking and bite your lip when you're thinking." He finally looked at me, vulnerability naked on his face. "I know you through living with you, not through investigating you." My chest tightened. "Dante, you're free, Sophia." He turned back to the fire. "The threats are gone, the debts are paid. You can go back to your life, or start a new one anywhere you want. I'll make sure you're set up, protected from a distance, if that's what you need. And if I stay," his hand stilled, hovering over the last page, "then you stay because you want to, not because you're grateful, not because you're afraid, because you choose this. Choose me." I recognized the last page, the one with his handwritten notes. "Don't lose her. Wait." I crossed to him, taking the page from his hand before he could burn it. "Keep this one." He looked at me, confused. As a reminder of where we started, I smoothed the paper carefully. "You saw me when I was invisible. You cared when no one else did. This isn't something to destroy, it's the beginning of us. Sophia, I don't want you to feel—" I pulled a small notebook from my pocket. His eyes widened as I handed it to him. "What is this?" "My investigation of you." He opened it slowly, and I watched his expression shift as he read my handwriting. "Coffee. Espresso double shot, drinks it black. Makes a face if it's not perfect. Morning person, sharpest before 9 a.m., gets quieter after midnight. Italian phrases when frustrated. Caso most common, Dio mio when exhausted. Always positions himself between me and doors. Protective instinct he probably doesn't realize. Touches his father's watch when he's stressed. Left wrist. Silver. Engraved. Gentle in the mornings. Kisses my forehead before he thinks I'm awake. Page after page of observations. The way he took his whiskey. His slight smile when I teased him. It's how he always served me food first. The specific way he said my name when he was worried. I've been investigating you too, I said softly. Learning you. Memorizing you. Because I love you, Dante. Not because you saved me or protected me or paid my debts. Because you're you. He stared at the notebook, then at my face, and something in his composure cracked. His voice came out rough, broken. Say it again. I love you. Again. I love you. I moved into his arms. And he held me like I was the only solid thing in his world. I choose you. I choose this. I choose us. His shoulders shook, and I realized with shock that he was crying. This powerful, dangerous man was crying in my arms. I was so afraid you'd leave, he whispered into my hair. That I'd lose you. Never. I pulled back to look in his eyes. You're stuck with me now. His laugh was wet, relieved. Promise? I promise. He kissed me then, deep and desperate and full of hope. And when we pulled apart, he kept the notebook pressed against his chest. I'm keeping this, he said. Good. It's yours. Just like I am. 6 months later, I stood in the small office of the Bennett Foundation named after Danny. My brother, who'd died under the weight of medical debt, and watched as another family learned their hospital bills had been paid in full. The mother cried. The father couldn't speak. Their daughter, 8 years old and recovering from leukemia, just smiled. You're free, I told them gently. No more calls, no more threats. Just focus on healing. After they left, I found Dante leaning against the doorframe, watching me with soft eyes. You're good at this, he said. I learned from experience. I crossed to him, and he pulled me close automatically. Turns out being investigated by a mafia boss has its advantages. You taught me that knowing someone's story, really knowing it, changes everything. I taught you surveillance, he said wryly. You taught me that attention is love. I kissed his jaw. That caring enough to notice the details means something. The foundation had become my purpose. Using Dante's resources and connections, I'd built something that helped families drowning in medical debt, the same debt that had nearly destroyed me. Every life we touched felt like honoring Danny's memory. Dante had softened in ways his men barely recognized. He smiled more. Came home every night. Chose negotiation over violence when possible. The investigation file had taught him to pay attention. Loving me had taught him to be gentle with what he learned. That evening, he led me to the library where we'd first kissed, where everything had changed between us. I have something for you. He handed me a leather-bound photo album. Confused, I opened it. The first page took my breath away. It was a surveillance photo, grainy, taken from a distance. Me walking to the bus stop, shoulders hunched against the cold. Exhaustion carved into every line of my body. Alone. Invisible. This is how I first saw you, Dante said quietly, sitting beside me. Before I knew your name. Before I had you investigated. Just a woman who looked so tired and so beautiful and so alone that I couldn't look away. The next pages showed more surveillance shots, each with a handwritten caption. The moment she smiled at the elderly woman who dropped her purse, pure kindness. Reading on the bus, lost in another world, needed escape from this one. Walking home alone through dangerous streets, either brave or broken, maybe both. Then the photos changed. No longer surveillance, but life. Us. Me curled in his library, laughing at something he'd said. Both of us on the balcony, my head on his shoulder. Dante kissing my forehead while I slept. Me at the foundation office, helping a family. The final page held our most recent photo. Rosa had taken it last week. We were in the kitchen, Dante's arms around me from behind while I cooked, both of us smiling like we'd forgotten anyone was watching. Below it, his handwriting, she looked at me. I investigated her. I learned her story. I fell in love with her truth. Now I wake up every day grateful she chose to stay. And I spend every moment trying to deserve the gift of being known by her. Tears blurred my vision. Dante, you transformed my life, Sophia. His hand covered mine. I went from collecting data about you to collecting moments with you. From surveillance to devotion. From investigation to love. I closed the album and turned to face him fully. You know what I learned from all this? What? That being truly known, every detail, every flaw, every secret isn't violation. It's love. I touched his face. You see all of me. And you stayed anyway. Always, he promised. For the rest of our lives. So, Mr. Rossi, I smiled through tears. What else do you want to know about me? His answering smile was pure joy. Everything. Every day. Every moment we have. He pulled me into his arms, and I melted into the embrace of the man who'd investigated me, protected me, known me, and ultimately freed me to choose him. Outside, the city glittered with 1,000,000 anonymous lives. But in this library, in this moment, we were the only 2 people in the world who mattered. Known completely. Loved unconditionally. Finally home.